Welcome to the Washdown podcast. And on this episode, be episode 153, we have Justin Hoover from The Battle Within. Great organization, great program. Highly encourage you guys to check it out. We had a great conversation. Justin's an Army veteran. So look, check it out. Here's the Washdown podcast, episode 153 with guest Justin Hoover.
All crews stand by for emergency traffic. All crews stand by for emergency traffic.
That's the unit with the mayday. Go ahead with your traffic.
If I need to clip anything from the front, I will. That's not that hard. The hard part of the editing is doing it whenever it's something in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So, because then it can get all jumpy and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, dodging.
I haven't been dodging you guys. No, it's interesting though, because I run this organization that has all these amazing people with all these incredible stories. And it's like, I'm honored to be able to come on shows like this and kind of share a bit of my story, but also it's kind of like, the show isn't about me. So it's been part of my own personal journey of, hey, it's good for the organization to get out there. Obviously, I'm the spokesman, having been part of it from the beginning. So hasn't been dodging. It's just part of my own journey of like, all right, it's okay to go out there and share some of your story to allow it to be shared for others and give them the opportunity to share there. So, yeah. But I appreciate your persistence, and I'm excited to come on. And I know we've had several of our folks come on, and I'm sure we will have plenty more.
I hope so. The guys that you send over and the people you've sent over have been fantastic so far.
Good.
So, but that is one of the things, that we have kind of been harping on a little bit lately with the podcast is getting people to share their stories.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things of, whenever everybody goes through these things, right? The big thing is, well, I'm the only person who's ever went through this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not. And the more people that come forward and say, look, this is where I was and this is where I am now.
Yeah.
That is so impactful and so helpful to normalize and get rid of all the stigmas in the first responder and veteran community of going to get help.
100%. I think, we're running a class right now this week, and every Monday it's kind of the same thing. Everyone's got their arms crossed, they're kind of side-eyeing each other, and it's like, why are you here? Am I supposed to be here? Like we project out of, well, what has this guy done that's deserved to be here? But really everyone's terrified that either their stuff is way worse than everyone else's, and getting help isn't going to actually help them, but they put themselves out there and they've taken a seat from somebody else, or their stuff is not nearly as bad as anyone else's, and they should just suck it up and drive on because they're taking a seat from somebody else. And, so seeing that play out on Monday, almost every class to the end of the week, when they come to realize like, hey, maybe my traumas didn't come from the same place as yours, and I think that's part of it. Our professions, it's so much like, well, only other veterans can understand me, right? Like they've been shot at, they've been blown up, they've had deployments, they've had all these hardships. Like they're the only ones that can understand what I've gone through and actually help me through it. And you sit there and it's like, oh, like here's this cop that had completely different situations, but like I never took a crackhead's baby out of an oven either. Like I never had to deal with a car crash where you see all this horror and like have to clean up people to get them out of the way to save the person that can be saved. And it's like, we're all here through different experiences, but because it's affected us in the same way, like our lives are falling apart, our families and relationships are falling apart because of the way this has impacted us, and we can help each other. Like I can understand how you got there, even though how you got there is a little different than mine. And so just the empowerment of that when you leave, and it's like, I can take charge of my life. I have to take charge of my life. It's something that's just so powerful to watch our graduates continue on their own path by having that week of discovery with us at the Battle Within.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, well, we better say what organization you're
Right.
with, because we've been going here for a few minutes and haven't even said, "Oh, hey, Justin, thanks for being on the show." So, what's your name and what organization?
Yeah, so I'm Justin Hoover. I'm the executive director of the Battle Within. Really, I kind of got into this work because I need it myself. I'm an Iraq veteran. I did a tour across the pond. And it was one of those things. I picked up a pair of Purple Hearts while I was over there. First one, I got some small arms fired to the face, and the second one was thanks to a suicide car bomber that ended up getting me a medevac back home. And so after about 10 years, I know I'll give you the brief version, and then after about 10 years, it was me saying I'm fine, I'm good, I don't need anything. Finally, everyone else realized how untrue that was, and we're like, yeah, no, dumbass, like, you need to go get help. And I was in a place where I was willing to listen and start that journey, and that's really what kind of led me along this road, and ended up being part of the Battle Within, which has been great.
That is such a common theme of everyone around you can see that, hey, you need help, but no, I'm fine because my trauma is not as bad as their trauma, or I'm the person who helps everybody. I'm not the person who needs the help.
Mm-hmm. But I think too, like the trauma, I mean, it's not like a light switch that flips and changes. Like, it's small by degrees. It's kind of like being put in a pot and then starting to put the pot to boil.
Yeah.
And so you don't really feel it. And so it's kind of like, well, we won't put up Christmas this year. I'm kind of tired and da-da-da. And then it's like, wow, we haven't done Christmas for like 3 years. And, it's those little things that you don't even really perceive the change in yourself. But then by the time like your life kind of hits that point of no return, I guess, whatever that looks like for you, where you kind of look back and you're like, oh crap, like I have gone through some changes. Like I have to take some ownership of this. This isn't everyone else in my life, being strange or mean or, broken. Part of it's me. And I think that's hard for people to accept.
You mean people taking personal accountability for themselves?
Right. Well, but I mean, like, look at our professions, right? Like, we handle chaos on a daily basis, and we're really good at it. And then, I remember coming home from Iraq, and at one point I ended up being in a cube farm, and it was like, I am miserable, and I'm not succeeding in the way I was. Like, I was fast tracked through my time in the military, and like just kept making rank and getting, offered to go green to gold a couple times by my commanding officers. And it was like, yeah, I'm a stud. I'm a rock star. And then I get out in the civilian world, and it's like, here's this thing I did. And they're like, yeah, that actually kind of scares us. Like that technology, we don't want that here. Like, and it was like, why am I doing so terrible in my civilian job compared to, the military, and these other, civilians that I consider a lot softer seem to be killing it. Like, what is wrong with me? And then I think you just kind of pull back, because it's like, I don't want people to know that I'm not doing well in a cube farm when I was like kicking ass in Iraq. So, I think it's just those little degrees that you lose yourself until you finally have the realization of like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately that happens so much. I was talking to Travis Gribble 2 days ago. Actually, we had him on the podcast, and he was saying that he read an article that said being a first responder is the only profession, and I would assume that military would kind of fall in there, but that it 100% changes your personality from the time you start till the time you get out.
Well, I think, they're lifestyles. They're not jobs. Yeah. Like, it is a lifestyle change. I didn't do it. My career was not as long as you all, and the military's tempo is a little different than first responder. I don't see how you all do it, because like I said, it's a lifestyle. And actually I have a friend, she's PD here in town, and she's working like midnights, and it's like, how do you get enough sleep? And she's basically like, I don't. I like operate on like 2 hours of sleep sometimes. It's like, that's not safe. How do you do that? And just doing it for years and years. And I don't think people realize it's not just a job. It is a commitment, not just for you, but for your entire family as well. Yeah. And the changes that forces you to adapt in a society that's not equipped to help you with it, it is very isolating.
Yeah. Well, and it's the unfortunate reality of these jobs run 24/7, right? But we talk about sleep and how important that is to processing trauma and all of that stuff. Like, how are you going to do that with a 24/7 job?
Yeah.
Like that is, I mean, it's shift work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's 24 hours. Some departments run a 48/96, which I don't know how those guys do that. And then PD is that weird 8-hour or 12-hour shift, and it rotates. And some days you're days and then midnights. And then, like, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Oh, 100%.
Because your circadian rhythm is just trashed.
Yeah.
And we know what happens to the body with that. I mean, cortisol levels and all of that stuff. And it's no wonder that we see overweight, out of shape cops and overweight, out of shape firefighters with sleep apnea. Like, we used to joke that, you know, whenever you get on the job, they should just issue you a CPAP machine, because you're going to need one at some point. I don't know.
Just a case of Monster and a CPAP machine.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, the number of people I know that are like, hey, let's get some Red Bulls. Let's get some Monsters, you know, whatever the energy drink of the day is, to stay awake. And then, yeah, they can't fall asleep at night. And then again, you know, you got kids, you have activities, you have all the like normal social stuff that you got to somehow balance in there. And then how are you safe on the job when you have no sleep? I mean, it's a challenge. We did it during deployment, and it was like, all right, find sleep wherever you can. I remember just falling asleep, and I mean, we were driving through some like crazy areas where there was car bombs and IEDs all the time. And it's like, I'm not the driver. I'm not the VC. I can catch 5-10 minute little micro nap, and like, you know, Jesus take the wheel, because there's nothing I can do anyway. So just wake me up when the ramp goes down. And that was kind of it.
See, and you say you don't know how we do it, but like, there's no way. I don't know how you could, like, I would be a nervous wreck. I couldn't sleep in that.
You know, but I think that's the thing. Like, we get comfortable in our own version of suck. And actually, when I got back from deployment, I had a neighbor, and she was getting married, and her grandfather was there. And I grew up, you know, with this guy around. He's an amazing World War II veteran. And we just got in like an hour-long argument of whose war was worse. And it's like, you were in the Battle of the Bulge. And he's like, yeah, but they had AK-47s. It's like, yeah, but the Germans aimed. And he's like, they had IEDs. Well, you had like artillery barrages for days. It's like, I read your book. You got like, you were lost on several patrols, and they just marked you missing and just stopped looking for you. Like, completely different scenarios, but like, we couldn't convince each other, because I know how to survive in mine. You know how to survive in yours. Yours sounds terrible. Mine sounds terrible, but like, we know how to survive those environments. So the unknown, I think, becomes the terrifying thing, that like, I couldn't do that. Like,
yeah.
But you get used to it. I mean, I remember there was a couple times we'd be, you know, the first couple times we'd get shot at. It's like, oh, everybody react and go into all this stuff. And then after a while, it's like, yeah, they're taking a pot shot. Like, you're actually like, did we get, okay, yeah, they hit the vehicle. Like, move forward 10 feet behind that building, then you just kind of lay out. And it's like, you know, you kind of become accustomed to it. And I'm sure you know, I'd be terrified to run into a burning building. I'm sure it becomes just another day in the office for you guys.
To a certain extent, I think it does. But then also, I think no matter where you're at in your career, you need to keep, and I don't necessarily think it's fear so much as respect for it.
Yeah.
Because
complacency kills.
Yeah. And not every house fire is the same. There's always something. Like, we had a situation, it's been a couple months ago, where we went up to this house, and it looked like a bread and butter, easy house fire.
Mm-hmm.
And within 3 minutes, we're pulling everybody out. People are getting burned because unauthorized remodels, they had put a rain roof on. Well, that's where all the fire was. So even though the roof was open, the heat wasn't going anywhere.
Gotcha.
It was just kept banking down on us, and we had to bail.
Yeah.
And what should have taken us, you know, an hour from show up and mop up and all that stuff, I mean, no, we were outside and shit was falling down.
Right. Right.
So let's talk about the battle within.
Yeah.
Let's give us the rundown.
So the battle within was really started. So Adam Majors is really kind of the founder of this movement here in Kansas City. And he is an Army medic, fought in Solder City, which if you watch the movie Chris Kyle, like that's where he was at. They were clearing IEDs along the road. And it's crazy to me because like my deployment was 2004, 2005. So they were pretty unsophisticated at that time. It's like, here's a 155 shell. Like they'd hire some kids to go dig a hole and then they drive by and like throw it in there. Like if they were getting really ingenious, they'd have a hole, like a van with a hole in the bottom. And they'd melt the road and put them in the road. So you'd have to drive over them. Like that was sophisticated for them then. And so like a lot of times we just like shoot at them with a grenade launcher. And it was like, that kind of looks like trash. And it's like, let's put some rounds in it. And then that'd piss off EOD when we'd have to call them because they're like, great, now I got more unexploded ordnance to work around. But I mean, it was kind of like, let's just drive fast and vary our distance and you play games. But I mean, it didn't work. I got hit like 22 times by IEDs and a car bomb and a suicide car bomb. But fortunately, like they were unsophisticated. A lot of times it buried them too deep or they were too far from the road or, so they weren't penetrating the vehicle like they weren't. And we were in striker vehicles, so they were survivable at that point. Yeah. By the time Adam got there, like they'd spend like 8 hours clearing 100 meters and they'd find like daisy chain stuff. And I mean, it was just insane what they would find over there. So, very different environment, crazy environment. So when he came back, lots of panic attacks and just the VA medicine didn't work. You talk about like, how do you deal with those traumas? Like when I was over, there was some study that was like, hey, if you play Tetris after a traumatic event or play video games, like it helps lessen the traumatic event. So they're like, hey, you guys, like, here's the tent. You guys want to play Halo afterwards? It's like, this is our mental health,
I mean, I'm not laughing because it's ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous.
Right. I mean, but that's what it was. That's what the capabilities were. That's what the staffing was. I mean, it was like, yeah, we set up a tent for Halo for you guys. And so, obviously mental health was a struggle when we were coming home, and the VAs were kind of winding down at that time instead of building up. And so they just didn't have enough therapists. So a lot of places it's like, let's just throw meds at you, zombie you out because we can't see you for 6 months so you don't kill yourself in between. And, so to Adam's credit, I mean, he really started looking back in history and he's like, how did ancient cultures do this? Because the VA is pretty recent, modern medicine's recent. Like we've been welcoming, these warriors from war for a long time. So it was really looking back and what ceremonies, what rituals, what connectedness would they allow to process those traumas? And that was really the curriculum he devised and the curriculum I went through in a previous iteration. And so 2018, really over 100 veterans, first responders, community members all came together because we were like, all right, we got to make this opportunity available for everyone to really help them find their path to healing and to stay on it. And that's kind of the thing, again, I feel very fortunate being a veteran because there's like 45,000 nonprofits for us. Like we're starting to like include our brothers and sisters in first response. And I'm so excited about that. But the challenge that I saw as I started my own journey is it's like, all right, here's this, they're mostly free, but it's like, here's 5 days of your time. And I had a 1-year-old son at that time, I'm working, I have a family, and it's like, all right, that's a big commitment. That's like a family vacation or a week of time off. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do this. And then it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to use those tools and ride on my own. It's like your New Year's resolution, right? Like, oh, I got the things, I'm going to do the thing. And then 6 months, a year later, like you realize like, I'm not doing the thing anymore. All right, I'm going to go grab another program, and you take more time. And so there's this cyclical effect of like the highs aren't getting as high and the lows are getting lower in all these folks because they are trying to grab these programs when they can. And they're not built to like coincide with one another. Like there's no collaboration with each other. And so that was really the foundation of the Battle Within was, all right, let's create, it started around our 5-day program, the Revenant Journey. Let's create this opportunity Because as we said at the beginning, like we're really resistant to going out and getting help. Like we feel we're not in the right place. People won't understand all the millions of reasons that we like to give. And I've heard them all.
Yeah.
But really let's help people come to a place where they can begin to understand their traumas, whether they be from childhood, whether they be from the job or just from life in general, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Like you get to come because you swore that oath to protect others, to protect your country and your community. And that's enough. And you are enough. And so I think that that's a big component is people don't feel worthy. And so that's a big part of the week is like, let's understand your traumas. Let's give you those introductions to those tools that are going to help you achieve your mental health goals, achieve becoming that person that you're going to discover you want to be during the week. And, you know, so many people, they come and they're like, my job broke me, or they used me up and then they, you know, let me go because I wasn't useful to them anymore, or whatever it is that they kind of come in with. By Wednesday, a lot of times it's like, I want to be a good mother, a good father. I want to be like a good spouse again. I want to be that person I was when I first put on the uniform. But it's these maladaptive coping mechanisms that I have built around me like armor to really survive the job and do well at the job that are slowly killing me in my relationships. And I still need those when it's, you know, time to be a trigger puller, time to run into the fire. But I need to learn how to balance it and have that humanity and that emotion for my family and for myself to be the person I want to be. So they find that worth. And then they really, I mean, you find a community that is going to be supportive. You are able through that vulnerability to really understand and care about the people in a very short amount of time. And that was the thing that surprised me the most, I think, when I went through, because I mean, when I left Iraq, it was like, I'm never going to have these relationships again. I mean, how can you, right? Like, I trust these guys to run to the sound of the guns, to get blown up together, you know, to go through hell with one another. Where do you find that in the regular world? Like, how do you build those relationships with other people?
Sitting in a cubicle?
Not there,
No.
right? Like, what are you doing this weekend? Like, no, you're not building those relationships. But really, after 3 or 4 days, it was like, holy shit, like, I have that same level of connection and care. And that was 7 years ago. Like, we still follow up. We still stay in touch. But it's because in both scenarios, you're allowed to be seen at your best and your worst and accepted for all of it. And really, I think that's what, as just humans, all of us are looking for. And so it was a great gift to me and I think to others to be able to be accepted for who you truly are, and held accountable in a loving way by those people to become the person that you discovered you wanted to be. So that's really how the battle within kind of kicked off and started. And I mean, it's been a crazy 5.5 years now since we've gotten going, and we are just getting started. So there's other services that we've added to really allow people to continue that journey. Our Frontline Therapy Network is our biggest one because, you know, now you have these new tools and this new passion. Like, how do you implement those into your life? And so really it is that structured support of a therapist. And you come to realize, like, hey, vulnerability and therapy aren't like this terrifying thing. Like, there's benefit there. Like, I need to continue that. So how? Like, where do you go for that? Because if you've tried to find a therapist, it's like blind dating at $120 an hour. Like, it sucks.
Well, and that's one of those things that a lot of these recovery programs, like, okay, I'm going to go do this 5 days or 30 days or whatever. And then at the end of it, you're kicked loose.
There's a Facebook group or there's like some ancillary thing so they can say they do aftercare, but really it's some online remote learning opportunity that nobody's ever going to do. Yeah. So,
but that's a huge thing because, you know, you get there and you do this, you feel like you have your tribe again. Like, and that's one of the things in modern times or whatever, where we don't really have that is, you know, you're living in a big city. You don't have that small group of people, right? Your tribe that you can talk to and do things with and all that. And then you go through all that stuff. You feel like you have it. And then, okay, yeah, see ya.
Right.
And you're done.
Yeah.
It's like, there needs to be more there.
There needs to be. Yeah. And so a large part of that is, and really kind of the ethos of the battle within is we're going to set you up for success, but you have to walk through the door and continue it. So, the Frontline Therapy Network, we're going to find you the right therapist that fits your needs, because we have a vetted pool of clinicians that we've ensured have the cultural competency, the education, the experience to truly be able to help you. Because I don't know how many people I've talked to that have just found some therapist through whatever, their EAP or whatever have you. And they're like, they were crying more than I was. And like, how, I can't believe you went through that. And it's like, how can you help me when you can't relate and, you can't hold yourself together, and you're helping me hold myself together. So finding those right people, and then we'll even pay for the first 6 to 10 sessions to get you started. And that really creates that structured support of like, all right, now here's these new tools to implement in your life, and here's somebody to help you actually implement them and continue to discover like how to process those traumas, how to really take that vulnerability and overcome those things. Cause that takes time, and I think we're very fortunate as a nonprofit. We don't have shareholders and profit margins and all that crap that we got to worry about. Like, we can actually give people the time to heal. And it's not like the VA's like, here's 12 sessions and then you're cured, or whatever, kind of modern health likes to put as, okay, you've hit your insurance, you've completed the program, you're done.
Yeah. Well,
that's not how people are.
That is, I got two things that just triggered with that. Is one, I don't think anybody's ever come in and said EAP was a good thing. Every single person that I talked to, especially, first responder wise, is like, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you know how it is with first responders and veterans. If you go and try something and it's a bad experience, you make your therapist cry or whatever, then therapy doesn't work because, that thing. And I just lost the second one.
It'll come to you.
Too many times getting hit in the head.
but you're right. I mean, we have to be on our A game every time, because people, they're looking for a reason not to do these things, right? Like, they want, that so-and-so told me I needed to do this. My mental health was sucking, but not really. Like, I'll go do it to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And they're looking, it didn't work. It didn't work. But also, the downside of that is this program didn't work. That program didn't work. This program didn't work. Maybe it's me. And then suicide becomes a much more viable option. And so, I think that's something that we always are making sure, hey, is this clinically responsible? Is this, the efficacy of this proven to be there? We're vetting our partners. We're vetting our therapists, because we know we've lived that. Like, we know this is real. And so we want to find you the right interventions that work for you, not just like, hey, we put a check on the wall that we served this person. Look how many we served. Give us more money. Because that's not.
Yeah. Well,
I've done there. I have a closet full of T-shirts from places that have done that, and I don't wear them because they don't help. But I also should probably just donate them because they're just taking up space. But
and that actually reminded me of what I was going to say, is what you said about the profit margins and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, in these career fields, we don't do it for the money, right? You're never going to get rich if you are a firefighter or a cop, and that is your job. Mm-hmm. If you're not some entrepreneur going out and doing, real estate on the side or this or that or the other thing, right? Your salary that you get, you're never going to be rich.
Right.
But the fact that they don't take care of us with our mental health, the way like the programs, or not the programs, the things that are provided for us by our departments and cities, it's like we don't even take into account that part of it. So we have all of these problems afterwards. And then we go to a program that is profit driven. And it's like, that shouldn't even be a thing in our culture to begin with, of how much money can I make off of this person charging insurance and all this stuff.
Right.
And then really that's all it's about, is the money. the dollar signs. Oh, we served this many people and we got this much money and we charged them this much. And, our shareholders now have a bunch of money. We don't have a bunch of fixed firefighters and cops and veterans, but we've got people making money hand over fist.
Right.
It's like, come on, something's got to change. It's like, there's a reason that we do this and that we're in these career fields. And there's a reason that there's people like you and programs like yours that you're doing that for the same reason that we're in these career fields.
I do have to say, like, Kansas City is an amazing town. From my point of view, I mean, running into just everyday people that are like, oh, I wish my grandfather had this from Vietnam. I wish my dad, who was a firefighter, I had access to this. And they don't really know how. Yeah, we've all gotten the thank you for your service. And it's awkward and it's weird because what do you do with that? Like, I always joke back, well, thank you for your tax dollars. Bullets aren't cheap, especially how I use them. and they laugh and I laugh and then we just kind of go our other way. But I mean, they're genuine. It's just hard when you hear it time after time that it doesn't feel genuine anymore. But they don't know how to help. But I think, we wouldn't exist without the financial support of our community. And there is a huge amount of support. And that's kind of once people learn and they're like, oh, yeah, they do so much for us. How can we help support them? And so, I think the tide, it's starting to shift. It's hard to see it because there's so many of us and we all know somebody that's like just one drink at 3 a.m. away. Right. And like, there's a big, deep hole. But COVID was very helpful in the mental health movement because everyone realized it, in their own way. And, unfortunately, the parade shooting the other week was, I think, eye-opening for a lot of people because they felt kind of what I think is a glimpse of what we feel on the daily job. It's that I knew somebody that was going to be up there. I'm terrified that they're one of the victims. There's chaos. I don't know what's going on. Like, I just remember for like the next couple days, there was like a dark cloud over the whole city and everyone kind of felt bad about like, oh, well, there's good things that happened that day. And then this terrible thing. And I think that's the same for us, like you could be at your kid's soccer game and then later that night on shift and somebody's dying, and it's like, they finally got a glimpse of what it was because it happened on such a public scale. And that's kind of the reminder, like all those like 1,000 first responders you saw running the right way, they were on next day. Like they didn't have time to process those events the same way you did around the water cooler because they got to be on. They are doing the same thing they did, just on a smaller scale out of the camera. Like there weren't live cameras.
Yeah. Today
and every day after. And so it's shifting. And I think the support, the KC Strong effort and the Chiefs and KC, Charlie Hustle, and I mean, all these entities giving money. And some of that is marked for the first responders that responded. Like it's happening. It's just, I don't think it's ever going to happen as fast as we want it to.
Yeah, especially, it's frustrating because when you're in the middle of it, right? When you're there and you're seeing it on a daily basis, and yes, you can see that there's change happening, but it's just so agonizingly slow. It's like, okay, well, we lost another one. Why don't we put this in place? Why, like, what is holding up progress?
Right.
And it's like, well, you've still got the stigma, you've still got the culture, then you've still got the money aspect, and then you've got leadership that maybe they're starting to get on board, but they're not really on board.
Right.
There are so many factors. And I mean, I do agree that I'm starting to see progress, but it would probably be more progress if I was at like a 50,000 foot view and I could see, okay, well, yes, we've come this far and I mean, this is fantastic, but
when you're on the front line, your whole world is your front line and it's never fast enough. I agree. And you saying that kind of reminded me when we first deployed and got over there, my best friend, had a friend he grew up with from home in the Marines, and he had gotten killed. They had entered a house and left the Humvee unsecured, and somebody slid a bomb under it. And when they came out, you know, so he came into my room, like we had just gotten off mission and I'd fallen asleep, and he came into my room and just like busted open the door. And so, you know, you're like, wow, like what's going on? Like
judo hands,
judo hands. Cause we were at that new in the deployment, and, you know, he was just an emotional mess. And it was like, all right, I'm like 20 years old. I'm totally unprepared for this. Like we were, you know, bayonet training is like what makes the green grass grow. Blood, blood, blood. Like that's what we're prepared for. Not the like, oh God, something horrible happened. Like, how do I tend to this human being that I care about? But I just remember I was going to the chow hall like the next day, and our company commander was there, and he had asked my buddy to come over to the table, and I went with him, and we're talking to him, and he's asking kind of some questions about how he's doing and everything, but he's not even looking at him. And like the fact that I remember, like, he had a cheeseburger he was eating and was basically kind of hiding behind the cheeseburger as he's talking to him and not even looking at him. And it's like, you know, my buddy's like in tears and like very much upset. Like this is the first death, you know, close to home he's experienced. And it was just like, yeah, this is not the commander that's going to care about you. And I think we all know kind of that old guard commander that's like that. That's like, all right, can you retire or die out? Because the new guard that's coming up very much is, hey, I don't want to be drunk and miserable at the end of my career. Like, I realize I got to take care of myself now. Help me do that. And they're like, we'll take your own time off to do that. We're not going to pay for it. Or, you know, all the obstacles they put in your way. And it's like, all right, if you don't want retention, if you don't want recruitment to get better, don't take care of your people. Because you're just going to add more stress to those that are there. They're going to keep leaving. And then, you know, our cities and communities are going to be in a deep world of hurt once we finally wake up and realize. So I do think that probably more, unfortunately, financially than anything, departments and commands are waking up and going like, oh shit, we've got to take care of our people because nobody wants to do these jobs anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, retention is number one on a lot of departments' lists of things to do because they aren't getting the applicants, you know, and it's something that you said about leadership in the old guard. What's funny is if you look back in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at like Colonel Hackworth and how he treated his troops, and General Mukiyama. I don't know if you've read his book. It's phenomenal, but he was under Hackworth. And just the way that they led people. Yeah. You know, you've had those leaders sprinkled out.
Oh, yeah.
But then it almost comes in like waves. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got the, like, just an absurd amount of good leaders who take care of their people and do this thing, and they set up this great culture. And then all of a sudden they just start dropping off. And then you get the managers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to a certain point, and then they drop off, and then you get good leaders again, and then it's back to managers. And I think we're kind of in that point where we've had our good leaders kind of die off and leave the career fields and all that. And then what we have now, we've got a bunch of managers, and they're kind of getting towards the tail end of their career. Right. And hopefully we'll get a crop of good leaders again that really care about and will focus on, hey, we need to make sure that whenever these people are coming through their career, that they're not having to deal with the same crap that we had to deal with.
Right.
And I think that goes back to that good men create hard times and hard times create good men, that whole loop thing.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of anything to add on to that because you said it really well. I mean,
well, that's the first time ever.
No, I think you're right. I think there is just that opportunity. So we speak at the Fire Academy every once in a while, and it has been really eye-opening. And I'm proud of them because they're these young kids. And so, you know, we're talking about mental health, and nobody wants to talk about their mental health, right? Like, especially when you're young and you have so many opportunities to drink and screw it and, you know, just stuff it away at that age. And, you know, at some point we kind of talk and, hey, do you guys have anything you want to talk about? And a lot of times it's like the veterans from the military that have then come into the fire service, and they're the first ones to kind of speak up. And, oh yeah, this is kind of my stuff. And you see the other kids, and they're kind of looking at him like, okay, yeah, he's going. It's safe for me to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, truly like 67% of the frontline ground pounders and first responder world are like, if my leaders go, I'll take care of mine. I mean, they're looking for, this is going to be okay. You're somebody that I respect. If you take care of your mental health, then that gives me permission to as well. And we're starting to see those leaders either step up and do that, or they're getting replaced by people that have already taken that step. And surprise, surprise, they're staying retained because they've taken care of themselves and they're getting promoted into those leadership positions. And they understand the value of it and they give that permission and they give that respect. And hey, I'm going to invest in you to take care of yourself and be a better person for you and your family. And I think they realize, like, by extension, I'm going to get a better employee that I can trust. And also, I mean, your retention is going to be there. If you take care of your people as people, they're going to respect that and they're going to want to hang around. And I think we're starting to see that shift. I think I don't know that there's a good metric for it. And everyone loves metrics, right? They're like, how many injuries do we not have? How many, how much is this saving us in HR paperwork and shit? And it's like, this is a person that like I get to see as somebody that came in as like really struggling in life and struggling with their family. And then 6 months, a year later, like they're doing well with their family. They feel confident in themselves. And suddenly like they're a great employee. And it takes time for that transition to happen. And it takes more support than I think traditionally we've been accustomed to, because before, there's, 5 other guys, just cut them loose and we'll grab another new recruit. And we aren't in those days anymore. So,
yeah. Well, and here's a really easy metric that all of these departments have access to. Look at all the members that you have had to send to either the Center of Excellence or some other inpatient program and how much that cost.
Yeah.
Right. How much did that cost your department? So I know whenever I went through, it was over $80,000. That was the bill. Yeah. So somebody's paying that.
Yeah.
Now, if you institute a program in the academy at the beginning and then a wellness program to go through, I'm not the only person on my department who's had to go inpatient.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. So, I mean, 80,000 times 100, if there's only 100 of us, you think you can put a program together for cheaper than that?
Right.
I think so.
Well, and that's the thing. I think we have those programs, Horses and Heroes does a fantastic job of continuing that. Chalk Up for Burpees does an amazing job. And again, I think, they're good follow-on programs after you go through the Battle Within, because they keep you on that path. They keep you in that community. Monkey Brain Art is another good one. I mean, there are those programs, but also like, hey, maybe if you're not ready to go down that rabbit hole yet and go to Chalk Up for Burpees, and you're going to be surrounded by other people that are further on their journey. And you're at some point, I mean, they're the best. Our graduates are the best advocates, because it's not HR sliding the flyer over and going, hey, you're starting to, like, people have noticed, or you were drunk on the job or something, whatever it is that landed you in the office. Here's the flyer. I hope you take advantage of it. Yeah. It's the person that you go to your kids' birthday parties and rides in the truck with you and that you see on every day. And they're like, hey, I care about you. You're going down a path that I've been down, and I don't want you to go further.
See, and that's why it's so important for people who have been through that journey to step up and speak.
Yeah.
And tell their story, and I know I've asked a lot of people to come on the show and talk about their stuff. And it's like, well, it's just like, it's not that important, or this or that, or, whatever. We do that. We downplay it and like, well, my thing wasn't as bad, or this or that or the other thing. Like, yeah, but you were here and now you're here.
Yeah.
And if you can catch somebody that was at your point before they get to this point, then isn't that a win?
100%. Like, we all want the person we care about not to have to go through the hell that we went through. And it takes being vulnerable and taking that first step. And I think, one of the things at the Battle Within is you see, like, your story is pretty normal. Like you've come in thinking you're kind of this outcast that nobody can understand you. And you come to realize like my story is startlingly familiar to like 9 to 12 other guys or gals. And if it's them, these 10 strangers, like it's probably going to be the person I care about too. And so you come to realize like, I can trust that therapist that maybe I thought was just like some kid doing their residency at the VA. I can bring this up to my spouse who I've never shared with before, because how could they ever understand? Because you come to realize like trauma is trauma, and it has some basic human effects to it that, we're not these unique snowflakes that we like to think we are. And so
wrong. I'm special.
Well, you are special. That's why I came on your show. But, the person that you see struggling, they're not that different from you. It takes the courage, but that courage comes from practice, right? So having where you can share and have that be honored gives you the confidence to go out and practice it with others. And I think that's the thing I'm most proud about, is how I think our graduates are like the best mental health advocates in Kansas City, because they will go out and share their story and really make sure that people don't end up in the same hell they were in. And to me, like, that's the most beautiful thing. We hardly do any marketing. Like about 85% of stuff is word of mouth.
I think with this population, though, that's the best.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you got to give, we always have like parents and spouses and stuff, and they're like, how do I have this conversation to get them there? And it's like, if I could write that book, I'd be a millionaire. That would be my, my side gig. Because I mean, for me, it was my wife kind of being like, hey, and this was my second wife being like, hey, things aren't going well. You need to go get help, or else like this family's not going to be there for you anymore. I mean, that's true for a lot of people. You kind of have to hit whatever that next level of suck is that you aren't comfortable within, to have that vulnerability to say, all right, I'll try it. Or you have to have that advocate that you trust that has been there before. That's like, it's not that bad. Just do it. And you can see, like, I mean, I always try and tell our people, I'm like, don't go home and be CrossFit Brad. Everyone hates CrossFit Brad. He's like, oh, CrossFit's great. It changed my life. It's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Brad, how long have you been doing it? 3 days, man. 3 days. CrossFit's awesome. It's like, fuck you, Brad. Like, get out of here. Don't go home and be like, I have all the answers. This is great. Like, just be the person that you learn to be. And that's where we get a lot of people where it's like, hey, I went to dinner with Brad and his wife last night, and I've worked with the guy for 20 years, and he's cold and he's hard and he's, great guy, but also he's a hard dude. And we went to dinner and he was warm, and his relationship with his wife is great. And I don't know what you did to Brad, but like, I need that. And that's really what we want to see. We want to see people be that lasting change and have that lasting change in their life and support them to become that. So,
yeah. DJ, you've been conspicuously silent sitting back there, buddy.
Yeah, just listening, so that's about it.
See, that's why I had you come on today. You just know exactly the right thing to say at the exact time.
I have one job to do. I'm doing it right here.
So the Battle Within is what? It's 5 days?
It's 5 days. So you start on Monday, about 10 in the morning. It's Friday, about 1 in the afternoon. So it is at no cost. All of our services are no cost. If you're out of state, you got to get to Kansas City. Once you get to Kansas City, we put you up in a hotel, transportation, all that. Food, lodging is all taken care of by us. That's actually what I'm doing when I leave here. Is Thursday is kind of our feast night to celebrate all the hard work they've been doing. It is Thursday for anyone watching it, not today. And so, it is those 5 days, and everyone's like, oh, 5 days, man, I got childcare and this and that. And I always say, like, when was the last time you took 5 days for yourself? Like, not family vacation where you got to chase kids or, manage with another family or spouse or whatever, but like just 5 days you got to focus on you and work on you. And the amount of people, because I'm like, how about a year? About 5 years? How about 10 years? And like the amount of hands that go up when I say high school. I mean, that's for most of us, like, yeah, when I was a child was the last time I actually focused on myself. And how can you find out who you are and where you want to go if you never take time to stop and really do an evaluation of yourself and work to better yourself and meet those goals? So,
well, yeah, and that's our society in a nutshell is go, go, go all the time.
Yep.
Like we were talking about earlier with the whole, third graders in soccer, and they're worried about what college they're going to go to,
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking all that and then pile on top of it the first responder and the veteran culture of I've got to be there for everybody else. When does that leave time for you to do something for yourself?
And then I think the other thing, all right, this 5 days sounds like a high cost to you. Then what is the next 5 years of not feeling good about being yourself? 5 years of your kids being afraid of you, 5 years of, your spouse being about ready to be done with you. What does that cost to you? Because one leads to a positive future. The other, just if you're comfortable in your suck, then you're going to continue to be sucking for the next 5 years. So, I think it's really finding that courage. And I hate to say that because, everyone finds their time when it's right for them. But it does take a lot of courage. It's hard to go through because we're not just dancing around in the woods. I mean, it's
what?
I know, right? I think Rachel lied to you a little bit.
I heard loincloths and face paint, and I was like, I'm in.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. It's, you are sharing yourself and you are getting to know yourself and sharing it with others. And that is hard. But the reward that comes out of that is, I can't even, well, I always try and say it to civilians because like, well, what is it really like? It's like, I can't truly explain to you like the depths of what a war puts you through to really explain the heights of what you can achieve when you actually start to heal from it. And so it is kind of hard. A lot of our alumni are like, oh, well, it's magic or it's this or that. And it feels kind of that way. But I would say like, you are that way. You just have to discover it. And that takes hard work that you have to get away from the known world. You have to, have that opportunity to spend time with yourself and spend time with people that understand you, care about you, and think you're worth it until you believe it yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of it is, as first responders, we're stuck in the immediacy of now, right? And to be honest, a little bit afraid to look at what is 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
5 years down the road for me is potentially retirement because I'm that close.
Yeah.
So, okay, do I really want to look? Do I really want to look there? Because I won't be a fireman anymore, and
right.
So what does that make me?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of us, we get tied up in the identity of our uniform that we wear, and it can be kind of terrifying to just be another guy at Target, right? Like, I was noticing as I was coming in, I was like, man, there's fire decal here, fire decal on the mat, fire decal. I was like, you guys are like the Marines of first responders, like.
And here's the funny thing. I didn't put any of that stuff up. That's all Rachel.
That's all Rachel. But
you notice that Jeep out there does not have a fire sticker on it.
So, I mean, yeah, there is a lot of that identity. It's, you find yourself in a cube farm or whatever your next job or your next thing in life is. And it's like, man, what do I measure up? Like, how do I even know what measuring is when all those things from my service profession are not there anymore?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've told, so many people that I know that have retired or, been separated from service, either voluntary or involuntary. Like, you have to find, well, one, you have to find yourself, but you have to find a new mission. You can't, like, I've just talked to so many guys that have been like, oh, you're retiring. What are you going to do? Nothing. I'm going to travel. Okay. What are you going to do in a month?
Right.
Because, just let's be honest.
What are you
Like-
going to do when your spouse kicks you out? Because like you're kind of insufferable around the house and they love you,
Yeah.
but they don't need that much time with you. And then it's like, yeah, what's your purpose in life?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's not for most people golfing several times a week and watching the news for the rest of their time. Like that shouldn't be our goal of working this hard to get to that. It should you have a lot of purpose to give to society and give to yourself. And I think a body in motion stays in motion. So I think retiring is good and finding something to do with that that's still serving you and serving others is even better.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, you got a lot of cooking to do today.
I'm not cooking. I'm just picking it up from Jack Stack. So,
Man, you made it seem like you were going to go whip up a 5-star meal for everybody.
well, it's going to be a 5-star meal. It's from Jack Stack.
I'll take your word for it. I grew up a little further south, so that's not the type of barbecue that I'm
we're going
in.
to have this argument before we're done, huh?
Yeah, we will. We will. If it's not sweet and thick sauce, I don't want it.
All right. I'll remember that.
Yeah. That then peppery stuff, man.
Hmm.
I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe you can explain it to me.
I grew up in Kansas City, so like it's kind of all I've known, but I used to work in video production and it was great because clients would come in all the time and they're like, yeah, I want some of that Kansas City barbecue. And it's like, sure. My goal is to just have a party where everyone brings their favorite from whatever restaurant. It's like beans from here, cheesy corn from there, whatever meats and ribs and burnt ends, and just do a big party that way. But nah, at least we're not, East Coast barbecue or
Yeah. No.
we can agree.
Yes. We can agree that's the worst.
That is the worst.
Well, DJ, do you have any final thoughts, buddy?
No, sir. I've been enjoying the show, so this is really nice. So, yeah.
All right. Justin, final thoughts.
No, I really appreciate you guys having us on. I'm sure there'll be other Battle Within folks that come your guys' way. To anyone listening, I just say it is never too early or too late to start your own journey. You are 100% worth it. And it's something that you get to start the rest of your life, and that's on you to start. And there's a lot of people that will help you through that. And so we really appreciate you sharing our mission and getting it out there and just doing this podcast and being part of that change. Like we were talking about, it doesn't feel like it's moving as fast as any of us would hope, but we can either be the solution or we can be the problem. And thank you for being part of the solution and helping make that momentum and that wave so others can get started on their path and be successful at it.
Well, thank you for doing what you do and you guys' program. It's phenomenal, and I'll be experiencing it for myself very soon.
I'm excited. I heard that the other day. Yes.
Yep.
So no, it's an honor to pay it forward to others to get what I got 7 years ago. And I'm excited for tomorrow and graduation. I'm excited for you to come through here in next little bit. What? May. Yeah. It just keeps growing, and we're thankful for all the alumni, all the veterans and first responders that entrust us with being part of their journey.
Well, big thanks to Justin Hoover for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Check out the Battle Within. I'll put links in the description and all that good stuff like we normally do. If you are struggling, reach out. There are people out there. There are resources out there. Hint, hint. If you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to them. Let them know you care. Let them know there are resources. If you guys don't know what resources are in your area, shoot us an email. If we don't know, we will find out for you because we want to be a resource too. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.